What's going on, everybody? Carolina Combat back today. Today we're joined by national champion Josh Wilson. Josh, thanks for coming on the show.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so before we kind of get into your college career, you started in middle school. So how did you initially started in the sport of wrestling?
I got started in sixth grade. I originally was doing Taekwondo, and what had happened was I ran into my science teacher I had at the time, Mr. Georgievich. He was the head wrestling coach for the middle school at the time. And he asked me, like, was I athletic at all? Because I didn't do like football or basketball for the school. I didn't try out for that. So he asked me, did I want to try out wrestling? And I always wanted to try wrestling. I never really knew much of what it was about. All I knew about was WWE. But and at the time I was already doing Taekwondo and I was taking it pretty serious as a kid. But I started wrestling and I found myself I enjoyed it a lot more because you could actually go 100% in sparring and no one would get hurt and
Right,
stuff.
right.
I started wrestling and it took off ever since.
Yeah, speaking into, going into college, when did you first realize, in your high school time maybe or middle school time that you wanted to compete at the next level?
I figured that out once I won my first state championship my year. I figured that I was after that, that kind of showed me that I probably wanted to take this to the next level because that opened up a lot of doors when I won the state championship. I got to train with better guys, and a lot of their goals was going towards college. I always knew that I was going to go to college, but I wasn't sure if I was going to wrestle in it. But after talking to my high school coaches, they kind of geared me more towards that. So I was going to a lot more bigger tournaments and prospect camps and stuff like that to get recruited.
Yeah, speaking on your high school coaches, Coach Cox and Johnson, what kind of impact did they have on you, as a wrestler and as an individual in life?
Oh yeah, they taught me how to be my brother's keeper, and how to my freshman year we had a really strong team that just had came off of a state championship, team state championship, and we also won another one my freshman year. So he really taught me how to hold others accountable, even if I'm not the captain, setting a good example. And they're family. Like I live in the same neighborhood as Coach Cox and stuff, and I see him when I can. But yeah, just being your brother's keeper, setting a good example. Discipline was a huge thing. Accountability was a huge thing, especially consistency. You got to have a routine and you got to abide by it if you want to be successful.
Adjustment for you going from the high school level to the college level? Maybe not just on the map, but academically as well.
Academically, so my freshman year, I decided to commit to Campbell, and I was there for about a semester. The biggest thing, if we're not just talking wrestling wise, the biggest thing really was academics. There's a lot going on when you first get like when a freshman first gets to college, especially like at a like it's a culture shock. You're used to going home and eating dinner and stuff with your family and parents, but it's different. When you wake up in the morning, you got a morning lift or a morning workout or conditioning of some sort. Then right after that, you shower, then you go to class and like you probably go to three or four different classes, and then you work out again, and then you got to eat, and then it's a lot. You got to have a structured routine because if you're not on point about that, it's really easy to fall off the bandwagon. That was something that I realized it was pretty overwhelming at first, but yeah, that's what every college freshman just getting used to how everything goes in college. It's a little learning curve, but if you have the right people around you to kind of guide you, you shouldn't really have an issue. Um, but yeah, I ended up transferring from Campbell and going to Greensboro College in that spring semester.
Yeah, speaking on that transfer, what made Greensboro College the right fit for you?
It was closer to home. I was homesick. I missed my family. And plus, like, you know, I was a walk-on at Campbell, so I wasn't really getting paid much to wrestle. So when I went to Greensboro College, like when I was in the transfer portal, Greensboro College offered me to pay for all of my years of education, all 5 years. I couldn't turn that down. It's free college
Absolutely.
every single time. I no regrets. I would do it 1,000 times over. College is extremely expensive, nowadays. And free education, you can't get that nowhere. I didn't have to pay for I stayed at home. I didn't have to pay for room and board, stuff like that. It was great.
For college? They're in the ODAC. How did that shape your career and prepare you to wrestle on the national stage? Because you had a lot of rematches at national tournaments, things like that, just from guys in that conference.
So yeah, before it was my freshman year, like true freshman year, sophomore semester, it was actually called the Big South.
Yep, yep.
And like we didn't have a tournament for that. They just did it off of dual team matches, and I won all my dual team matches off that. And the next year was still Big South. We had an actual tournament, and I won that tournament. And then the year after that, that's when they started the ODAC. Um, the ODAC really, I wouldn't say it kind of prepared me for the NCAA tournament. I would say the D1 Opens did
Right.
because the ODAC and the D1 Opens, it's not like one is harder than the other of some sort. It's like this. What makes ODAC hard is the guys that you going to face in the ODAC, you're going to have to see them again and again and again and again and again. So eventually, if they're coaches, if they have a decent coaching staff, they're going to know every move you hit at some point. They're going to know where you like to be on the mat, what your go-tos are. That's what makes ODAC or conference battles hard, but as opposed to D1 Opens, that's just raw talent. You're gonna run into some guys that's like and I'm not saying D3 guys aren't good. That's not what I'm saying. There's a bunch of talent on the D3 level. But D1 is like when you go to those D1 Opens, like Coach Hardy put us in probably like two or three D1 Opens, like a season. Like you run into some hammers, and that's
Right.
what you need to prepare for NCAAs. And but by the time you get to postseason, like conference regionals, it's really all tactics at that point. They probably wrestled you like even before the ODAC tournament, they probably wrestled you in a dual team match already. So it's just like it's gonna be a close match. It's not gonna turn up to like third period, stuff like that.
Part of the Greensboro program, shape you as both an athlete and as an individual in life.
It taught me how to be optimistic about my training environment. When I first got into GC, we were a very small team. And they still were all through my years of college. I had a good coaching staff. I had Miss Johnson, Coach Hardy, Coach Wilburn, and they helped develop me. And it was a lot of I had to really make the best of what I had, as far as training partners went.
Yep.
It was times where I had to be in the middle and wrestle guys back to back to back to back to back to back, and sometimes you need to do that, sometimes you need to do that in the room. But I also had Miss Johnson as one of my coaches, and he always would give me a good go, make sure I was on point. He was kind of like he always made sure technically I was sound, and Coach Hardy, he was the one who kept my mental on straight, make sure I was positive mindset. I'm calm. I'm not too anxious, and Woodburn, he was like super technical also. Like he's the one who got my underhooks and Russians, foot sweeps. And because if you watch like me wrestle freshman year and sophomore year compared to like because freshman sophomore year I had a different coach. I had Kevin Birmingham, and then he resigned and did something else. And then I had Coach Hardy, and then it was a new coaching staff my third year of college. And you just look at the different styles. I would say freshman year and sophomore year, I was more from space, touch and goes, doubles and singles, compared to like I had all American both of those years, and people at that point I was becoming predictable. So I had completely changed the
Absolutely.
move set, and I'm working Russians, underhooks, arm drags, elbow passes, like more hand fighting stuff, a lot of more snap downs, and getting people real close, just battling and hand fighting more, getting more physical, and that was kind of like Hardy's style that he always preached was like aggressiveness and physicality, and Woodburn also added that kind of finesse-esque to it. With the arm drags, the Russians, he really had that European style. If you ever go overseas and you go to like watch Russians or Ukrainians or any of those people over there wrestle, you see a lot of underhooks, switch steps, arm drags, a lot of hand fighting stuff, and I was blessed to have them as my coaches and learn that kind of stuff. But I'm sorry, I went on a
No, I
tangent.
absolutely love to hear
What were
things
we
like that.
talking? What was the question again?
Just kind of how did the program shape you and the impact for your
Oh,
coaches type of thing.
it,
Yeah.
it
So
overall, like the program itself made me like I obviously it made me a better wrestler. But I was more of in the big brother role. You know, I found a lot of the guys we recruited were not highly recruited wrestlers, and we were like the school that like would give them a chance to get their name on the table and all that good stuff. And I found myself a lot, you know, kind of teaching. Like I'll be drilling, and I'll be like, "Hey, man, your single right here is a little wide. You need to hit a narrow angle here." Or, "Hey, man, your underhook needs to be a little more tighter. I can slip out." Or, you know, I found myself in the big brother role, and it goes back to what I said, learning in high school how to be your brother's keeper. So, it really shaped me because like now I'm in the coaching role and it doesn't feel
absolutely.
foreign to me because I'm used to being able to roll with guys and being able to, you know, nitpick and be like, "Hey man, maybe if you did this a little better, it'll be perfect." You know, and that's what coaches do. So, I mean, like I feel like being in that environment, Coach Hardy, Mitch, Coach Mitch Johnson, and Woodburn, Coach Woodburn, it really did shape me to be like a better overall person, wrestler, and currently coach, you know.
I know you are still volunteering with the team as you're finishing up another degree. So what's that kind of been like so far?
Oh, so yeah, all right. I got to do my CPR training today. So like, yeah, I volunteer coach there, and also I've been if you ever heard of NC United, I don't know if you have.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, it's a business. I got into it I think about maybe a year ago. Yeah, and it's really nice. I've been coaching. I started off coaching middle school. Now I'm coaching middle school and high school practices, and I've been working with them a lot because you know during college, it's really just the college practices right now are just open mats and stuff. We're not in preseason just yet. Usually when we're in preseason, it's around Super 32 time.
Right.
But even then, I'm going to try to be balancing helping out the NC kids, middle school, high school, and helping out, you know, GC college, you know, and also yeah, I'm getting my master's. I'm getting it in teaching English as a second language. So I'm gonna be like an ESL teacher. In that I get my master's and my teaching license, and I could travel around the world teaching English. And that was kind of I really wanted to travel the world. I've been in Greensboro all my life. Like I've
Right. Right.
never been anywhere different outside of the state or even outside the country. So that was a big reason why I wanted to get that master's and that, you know, be able to see the world, you know, and broaden my horizon. But yeah, right now, while I'm getting my master's, I'm probably going to be doing substitute teaching, uh, assistant teaching, and be doing coaching, with, you know, NC United, with my school, and with my school has also a wrestling club, Spartan Elite Wrestling. I hop in there and help out when I can. But yeah, you know, just giving back, you know, making sure my education is straight and you know, in my spare time, you know, I picked up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu last month. That's like a hobby of mine because you know, I'm still kind of competitive
Oh
right
yeah,
now. I'm
absolutely.
still got that competitive edge and you know, I also have the will to learn. I like learning new things. So I picked that up about a month ago. I'm gonna be competing in it, you know. And you know, I'm just kind of everywhere at the moment.
Yeah, going into that national championship season, what made that year different from others? And just, I don't know if it's mentally or physically or what kind of just made that season different for you.
National champion to Greensboro, winner 4-2 from Greensboro, Josh Wilson.
I would honestly is I would say performance wise, I don't really know. Be honest with you. If I'm gonna keep it 100 with you, I mean. I wouldn't say that season I worked harder than any other season. I mean, I think everything was pretty much the same for the most part. It's just how the national tournament plays out, to be honest with you. I mean, when you have guys in one tournament and they're all neck and neck, in talent wise, and you can see this with not even just a D3 tournament, but D1 tournament. If you play it over and over and over again, there's going to be a different outcome unless there's like a guy levels above, like, a Gable Stevenson or like a Spencer Lee or Yanni Diakmahalis, who's just levels above his competition. Every time you play out that national tournament, there's going to be a different outcome, just because the competition is just so tight and close together. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it was anything different. I feel like the year before I probably worked way harder, almost probably too hard, like I probably overtrained. Like
Right.
but like I guess the following year I found that balance and and it's just how the tournament plays out. It's I learned in this sport you can't really be attached to an outcome. When you're attached to an outcome and you don't look at the journey that you've been through. I mean, yeah, accolades are cool and all. Yeah, they're great, but if you attach yourself to an outcome, that's how you're going to value your whole experience,
Right.
because if I'm keeping it real with you, I would say that that year probably wasn't even one, like if we exclude the NCAA tournament, that probably wasn't even my best season, because I've had probably better seasons like overall, but national tournament, some people can just turn it on, and I
Right.
guess that was just my tournament to win that year.
When did you first believe you could, accomplish that? I don't know if it's, early in your college career or kind of when did you first believe like, well, I can go win a national title?
I was always title contending. Like my freshman year, I was like in the semifinals of the national tournament. So I mean, I always knew I had the ability. It was always this wall I kept hitting between just being an All-American and national champ. And that wall it's it's really hard to break through because there can only be one national champ, but there could be like eight All-Americans. So like
Right.
it's really hard to hit that window. So my freshman year, I knew that was my goal and that's what I wanted. And I I kept shooting for it. It was always a goal. You never want to just sell yourself short. I never was like, oh, I just want an All-American because I mean, if you do that, you might not even All-American. You
Right.
want to go shoot for the stars. If you don't hit the star, at least you land on a cloud or something.
Right.
It's that was always my goal. Even going into college, I mean, I knew it was possible after my freshman year. I was like, wow, I could really do something in this sport. But that's been my goal all 5 years, win a national title.
Yeah. What did it mean to bring that national title, back to Greensboro? And what did it mean just to be able to, basically put on for your city, for those years and wrestle basically in your backyard?
It felt great. I mean, it's I don't really know too many people who've in North Carolina, whoever did that before, um, like who were actually from the state of North Carolina and brought back a national championship back to their own state. I mean, it felt great. I mean, it was awesome. It was electric. Uh, but it wasn't short after that, like that I was like probably like a week later, I was like, all right, that happened. Let me try to get another one.
Right.
People always think when you win big things that that's going to be the end all be all. I'm good here and then I'm done, but that's not how the brain works. The brain always wants a goal, wants something to shoot for. That's how humans work. So, uh, really, after I won it, I was grateful. I celebrated, had a good time. And then after that, I was back on the mats, ready to grinding, trying to get me another one.
How did your mindset evolve over your time wrestling in college?
Well, it definitely it was the wrestle in college. You definitely build a strong mindset. I think the biggest thing was being able to deal with pressure and high pressure situations. Um, I mean, every wrestler could agree with this. When you're in a huge match, the amount of adrenaline flowing through your body is insane. Like especially when it's a situation where you're like, you know, the guy you went against, you probably faced him like 6 times already, and this match determines between national championship or not. You know, it's huge. You know, like learn how to deal with adversity and stuff like that. Something that I also picked up while I was in college was like ice baths.
Right.
But not really for recovery though. So I have a ice tub in my backyard, like a little cold plunge, and like I wouldn't have to put ice in it during the winter because you know it gets so cold it'll freeze
Right.
over. I go in the backyard after practice, um, break the ice and hop in there to see if I can hit 10 minutes in there. And I wouldn't be playing no music, just darkness, like, you know, just straight in the night, in the cold, just, you know, just to callous that mind, you know, push that wall back, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
make myself super duper uncomfortable. And I would wake up in the morning knowing that was how I was going to end my night. And I used to grimace at the thought of it, you know, but I would still hop in and I would still like, just eat it, you know. That's the main thing about wrestling, you know, it just pushes your mental so far, you know, makes you so mentally tough. That's why you see a lot of wrestlers nowadays, they go into the service, you know, do military or become doctors and stuff. You know, because you need that in the real world. You need that mental callous, you know, this is the only sport where you're going to see kids grow up and be great human beings, but also be mentally tough, you know. So over
Absolutely.
the years, I learned like just that mental toughness, you know. That mental toughness, I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's made me the person I am today.
Absolutely. Speaking on that, how did you hold yourself accountable day to day? Because you said, you did have some limited resources, things like that. So how did you just hold yourself accountable, making sure you're doing what you need to do?
Holding myself accountable, honestly, it just came down to time management and routine. If you don't have a standard, if you don't have a routine in general, it's going to be hard to stay consistent. It was for me, I pretty much and I not everybody has to be this extreme, but down to my food, to what time that I do my work, all that was scheduled. I had written that down. And another thing, every college athlete needs one of these, an agenda like of what they're going to do today, you know, or what they're going to do. They need to map out their whole week, no surprises, none of that. If you really want to be consistent. And that was something that I did all through college, you know. It's just a routine, and that's how you stay consistent, you know. And another thing too was you had to learn how to control these. These right here, these devices. No, my gosh. It was if you don't know how to control that thing, it will control you. You will be
Absolutely.
all on like I had to learn how to manage my screen time. I had to you know, basically make sure that I wasn't on my phone before bed. I wasn't on my phone. I was supposed to be doing work. I had to manage all of that, you know, because if you don't, you're going to end up scrolling all through Instagram, TikTok, and you're going to waste a lot of time. And it's really easy to do with how good they make these apps and their algorithms and stuff. It's super easy to waste time. So that was the main things. Make sure I had a routine, controlling my screen time, making sure my sleep was on point. I make sure, and even for me, I even ate the same thing. I even know how much food I was eating a day, how many calories I was getting in a day. Um, I was documenting my workouts. I was saying, oh, in practice, I learned this, and it's going to help me with this, and my goal is this. Everything was structured, you know, and that's kind of my secret to living a more consistent life when you have huge goals in mind. But you know, everybody's different with how they do things, but that was just my approach to staying consistent.
Yeah, I know you're in, the media realm as well, and you have your own podcast. So kind of how did that start and what just motivates you to be involved with things like that as
Yeah,
well?
so at my school, I ran the school's newspapers podcast. I ran their podcast for about a year. It was for an internship, and it was everything journalism, like anything that happened on campus and all that. I would basically would make episodes about it. I would set up the studio, and I would write scripts, all that good stuff. And most of the time we just freestyled it. That's podcast style, no cuts, just talk it right through. And it was a fun experience. It was fun. Wrote a couple newspapers, a couple articles, and I did a lot of writing in college. I was high up in the journalism kind of field. After graduation, I kind of decided I wanted to do a career change. I found myself more, just with as much coaching that I was doing around like during college and stuff, I kind of decided I wanted to go more towards the education side of things
Right.
because my major is English communications. Like communications is like media, journalism and stuff, and English is literature, linguistics, grammar and stuff. So I figured I was gonna go more towards the teaching kind of route, something stable. That way. And plus, when I saw the program, you can get a teaching license and a master's. I was like, that would be awesome to be able to teach abroad and do stuff like that and travel the world. So that's kind of what I decided doing. But I also still have the media skills. Like I still can use the whole Adobe suite from Premiere Pro to After Effects to Audition, pretty much everything in there, Photoshop. I know how to use and but yeah, that's pretty
Y-
much where I was going with
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
I know you do want to study abroad. Do you ever see yourself, coming back in state, maybe working at a high school, coaching a high school program, or kind of where you see yourself maybe down the line with that?
Um I for me, I kind of try to stay present, but if I were to kind of try to map out what I would do, while I'm getting my master's and I'm here, I would probably be teaching high school and middle, just for assistant teaching or even full time, until like I fully graduate. Because the first half of my education is like me getting my license, and the second half is me finishing the master's because it's a dual program. It's a 2-year program. So I'll be here for like 2 years. And then after that, if I land a job in state, which I probably will, I land a job in state, probably stay here for 2 years and kind of decide whether what country I want to go to or when I want to do that. But I do plan on doing that someday, leaving the country and teaching abroad and possibly, doing a little bit of wrestling or judo or jiu-jitsu or wherever I'm at, maybe samba,
Absolutely.
because there's a whole bunch of different grappling sports out there in the world, just kind of broaden my horizon. And then when I come back, if I leave country, I'll probably be doing like a 2-year contract and then I'll come back. Uh, and then, my end goal, I want to be a college professor. So
Absolutely.
if I end up not leaving the country, I'm going to try to find a job at a community college, and I'll probably be still doing the coaching thing, but I'm not sure about doing high school coaching.
Yeah,
Like I kind of like doing the club stuff, if that makes
absolutely.
sense.
Yeah, absolutely. What advice would you give to yourself, younger self who started in wrestling?
If any advice I would give to my younger self would be, do not cut weight. Get in the weight room, put some food on your plate, get big. That would be my
Abs-
number one advice. I would tell him, I would look him dead in his eyes and be like, put some muscle on your body, stop cutting weight,
yeah,
wrestle your body weight. I feel like that the whole cutting weight thing, I understand the purpose of it. You got to put in weight classes if you have a competitive team. I understand. But studies have shown that athletes perform better while they're hydrated and their bellies are full. So it's insane. You go to a football game, right? Well, you look at a football team, right? What are they doing before their games? They're eating.
pregame. Yep,
Yeah, 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 they're eating, they're stretching, they're getting loose, they're just feeling good, they're getting a good sweat in. They probably might even get a pregame workout in, like just
absolutely.
just a little pump just to get ready, right? Is every other sport I see before their matches, they're doing the opposite of what we're doing before our matches. I mean, and that's where our grittiness and like our toughness comes from. But check this out. Before our matches, we dehydrate ourselves, we starve ourselves. We're in a fasted state. Um, and sometimes it works. Sometimes you can be a weight bully and you can be in a weight class and that you know you're too big for and be at their weigh-ins and be huge, but what does that do to your mental, to your psychological when you don't have enough water in your brain, you know? What happens if you bump heads with somebody too hard and you're dehydrated? You know what happens? You get knocked out, you get concussed. Like these things like this, I don't know why it's in our sport. I've seen plenty of great kids, they get that skill level under their belt and they're like, man, I don't need to cut weight. What do they cut weight for? Like, I'm gonna just use my skill. I'm gonna use my speed. I'm gonna use my technique. You can, in your training get so much better when you stop cutting so much weight. If you look at how the performance, the strength, the explosiveness, where does that come from? It comes from
Yep,
nutrition and it comes from hydration. That's where it comes from. How are you going to feel good if you didn't eat or drink any water this morning? How are you going to perform? Like trash. And if you don't perform like trash, you're not going to be your 100%, you know?
absolutely.
So, that'd be the main thing. Like I would never, and that's the reason why that I'll probably be more in the club scene than I would the school scene, because I don't feel comfortable being in a position to be like, look, telling like a 14-year-old who weighs like 150 pounds, like, oh man, got a 150 pounder, but how would you feel about cutting to 135?
Yeah,
What? He's a
yeah,
14-year-old. He's not going to know how to structure his diet right or any of that. He's not going to know how many calories he's tracking. Or no. What is he going to do? He's going to hop in
absolutely,
the Epsom salt bath, put on a trash bag, and starve himself. That's what he's going to do. And we want to know he's going to wrestle like garbage. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
So when I wrestled in college, you can ask any of my opponents. I weighed in with clothes on. I weighed 138 and wrestled 141.
Yeah,
I mean, and these are grown men, college wrestlers. Any kids that I train in the future, they're going to be in that weight room. They're going to be eating protein. They're going to be doing plyometrics. They're going to be box jumping, squatting heavy, pushing heavy weight, running sprints. They're going to be athletes. And
absolutely.
and I want to get them to a point where it doesn't matter how much their opponent cuts weight, like they're gonna run through them, and that's kind of my goal. That's how I want the sport to be. But I feel like it's just overran with these coaches that think the more weight you cut, the more successful you're gonna be. I've beaten people who cut 20 pounds, and hopped on the scale and were way taller than me. But you wanna know what happens in that third period when you done dehydrated yourself for the past 2 days? You get cooked.
Gassed.
You get dehydrated, you gas out. So that's just kind of my spill on cutting weight. I think cutting weight is stupid. Um, love me or hate me for it. I think this new wave of guys coming in and look at Yanni Diakmahalis. What he bumped up like what 2 weight classes? He used to wrestle like 141 his freshman year. Now he wrestles like 49, 70 kilos. Like come on now. I mean, you see it at the highest level. People are stopping restricting themselves from nutrition. That's my rant on cutting weight and all that.
Absolutely.
Tangent. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy. Like with those MMA fighters too, they cut all that weight and they gain 30 pounds overnight. I'm like, what's the point even in them weighing in?
Yeah, and the thing about MMA, like it's kind of like they force you to anyway, because it's like you got to weigh in the day before you get a whole 24 hours. And I understand that. In the Super 32 off-season tournaments, you're kind of in a weird predicament where it's like you know, they got a whole 24 hours to pump back up. But
The
my
one
main
way in.
thing, yeah, and my main thing, and I've even seen guys not co wait and be successful in tournaments like that. I've actually a kid that I've been coaching for a while, Jack Hardy. He went to VA Nationals, and he wrestled like 190, like didn't cut weight. He's still All American. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So it's like. It's possible, it's doable. I wouldn't rule it out. And Hardy, if you ever wrestle Jack Hardy, he's strong as an ox. You put hands
yeah,
on him, whoo, he's strong as an
absolutely.
ox. He punched underhooks and Russians and snaps people to their faces. Why? Because he's eating good and he's lifting those weights. So that's just kind of my tangent on that.
Yeah, for any younger wrestlers who may aspire to do some of the things you did, what advice would you give them?
Um, be consistent, have fun with the sport. Don't be attached to an outcome, win or lose. If you lose, that's just a lesson, you know. If you win, still find out some ways to improve, you know, never be satisfied or stagnant with your performance. Always look for an outlet to get better. Make sure you're wrestling kids that's better than you, even if you get beat up. Go back and ask them like, hey, what can I do to better myself in this situation? What was it that I did wrong that I could have done better? You know, always look for a way to improve. And also keep a journal with you. Like these moves that like I see kids all the time go to these clinics with these high level coaches. And then like I ask them a week later, like, hey, so what did you learn? And they're like, I learned,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
no, write it down, put it in a journal. Make sure you're memorizing this stuff so like you're getting the best value out of every single practice and training you go to. That's my main thing. That and make sure you're doing the extra work outside the room. Make sure you're picking up some weights, running, doing some hill sprints, you know, staying strong. Make sure you're stretching, you know, staying flexible. Anything, you know, I believe in technique, you know, but anything like flexibility, speed, explosiveness, strength, all that helps, you know. And then when you're in big tournaments and y'all are technically neck and neck, those little things that you've been doing outside the room, they're definitely going to pay dividends. They're going to you know, kind of break that barrier between you and your competition.
Absolutely. As we wrap up, for any of your fans or supporters who are watching, what kind of message or anything like that do you have for them?
Any fans, supporters, first off, if you're watching, thank you for watching. Uh, glad to have your viewership and look forward to doing some coaching and staying in the community and stuff like that.
Well, Josh, thanks for coming on the show. It was a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you. You have a good one, all right? I
You as
appreciate
well.
it.